Good evening. Just like Europe, the Premier League realizes that oil is here to rule. Chelsea continue to struggle with getting leads. Spurs beat a Portugal and Friends 11, and Alan is definitely Max and not Min today. Welcome to the Talky Taka podcast. Good evening. On the panel today, we have a returning RK, we have Radhaji, we have Ab, who is seething, and we have DSK. On tonight's episode, what we are planning on doing was talking about Newcastle City, Fulham, Brentford, Leeds, Chelsea. But to start off with, let's start on a happier note. Let's start with your top moment of the week. I'll go first because, as the host, it's my birthright and I need to take the easier option out. So I'll just go for the only good thing that's happened this weekend for me, which was Alan Saint Maximin basically taking on the might of Manchester City by himself and securing a point for his team, which didn't help me in the draft, but that's something I can live with.
Because
I
Manchester
can.
United didn't play so far this week, I was able to appreciate the little quirks of the Premier League. So my favorite moment is Zaha and Martinez, like the penalty encounter between them, where Martinez, saved the first attempt. Zaha converts it, and then he stares at Martinez. Martinez gets angry. That was my favorite moment of the week.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of shithousery moments going on this season. My favorite one was, I think, the Saliba goal. That was not because of the goal; it was an outstanding goal, one of the best finishes of the weekend. But as soon as he strikes it and it goes in, Zinchenko just falls onto his feet with his head in his hands in sheer disbelief. And then I think Odegaard talked about it in the post match as well, that they were in disbelief that something like that happened. I think there's a lot of camaraderie and good to see stuff happening at Arsenal. That was really funny. I saw when Zinchenko went on the floor, I was laughing.
And the chant, Saliba.
I uh, I watched the first Wolves game and I thought Wolves got absolutely battered in the first half by a Wolves team without a strikers. And in the second half, Ivan Perisic completely changed the game. All the entire Spurs attack was down their left. He gave the flick on for the Kane goal. So for me, that was the moment. Perisic came in with a lot of hype. I have him both in the draft fantasy league and in the other league and in the normal fantasy league, and yeah, he delivered with the points, a clean sheet and assist, and the bonus points. So for me, that was the moment. Uh, Sorry, taking a moment here to speak about the Arsenal game. It there are some really crazy stats from that game, or the odds of things happening. Like Saliba, this is just the second senior goal he has ever scored, and Odegaard has not scored more than one goal a game since he was 15 or something. So all weird things happening in a single game. So looking for the oily sailor on Twitter talking about odds of all of these things happening.
I'm gonna go. No, I'm very tempted to say Mitrovic, but I'm gonna say.
I thought you would say that.
Moment. No, it's not a favorite moment by any stretch, but I think a very consequential moment this week was Mendy doing or trying to do whatever he did that led to Leeds' first goal. And from there, Chelsea had no way of coming back. I know we'll talk about that in some detail now. But yeah, I think that was a pretty consequential moment this weekend.
Cool. Getting into the games that happened, I think the most exciting game of all was Newcastle City, which has just completed, and we just convened right after that. So adrenaline is high, and fun times were had by everyone apart from defenders of the two teams. Who wants to kick this one off? I've already said that Maximin was pretty good. Pope probably kept them. Gave them 1 point at the end with his saves, but Newcastle did better than we expected them to.
I think this is like a season so far which is making us like religious, or I think Radha was referring to converting to Christianity. We are talking of people like Jesus, Saint Maxima, Pope, and all. I think this game was basically, I think, outstanding performance by some of the Newcastle players. Great tempo to the game. Probably the best game of the season so far. I thought City, after scoring their first goal, probably became a bit complacent and they were sitting on their toes a bit. I thought that what we saw last game, where they were committing their fullbacks into midfield, when they were losing the ball and they were not reacting as quickly as they usually do, that was leaving a lot of space where those fullbacks are supposed to be tracking back, and Newcastle were really countering at speed, and City were in all sorts of trouble in the first half. Uh, Trippier scored a great goal, and at that time, you knew that there was an inevitable, fight back coming. And then City started taking control, started really, getting into the game, getting really sharp, doing what we are used to seeing from them. Some really great individual performances on both sides. I mean, I'm not even surprised by what De Bruyne does anymore. What that threaded pass was just absolutely beautiful. But for me, shout out to mainly two people, Nick Pope and Saint Maxima, outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a great game. I think the second week in a row we're talking about a great game to watch for neutrals. Um, Newcastle were just so much better than I expected, and they were actually better than City for a large part of the game as well. They were dominating them at one point until they scored the third, and then City just flipped a switch. And I was like groaning when they actually scored the third. Sometimes I feel like 2-1 is better than 3-1 against Man City. You don't want to tickle the dragon and wake them up. And yeah, just before I could finish celebrating the goal, they were already 3-3. Saint Maximin just really showed you what he can do. He was absolutely unplayable in that first half. When he's in this kind of mode, he's like the ideal impact player. But I think, again, like he does very often, he kind of tailed off in the second half as well. So he's a little unpredictable.
Yeah, he's blow cold. I think there was a stat during the game that he's got more assists today than he had at St. James's Park during the entire previous season. So, I mean, everyone calls him mercurial for a reason. So, I mean, no doubts there.
Yeah. Whenever I think about him, I always think about the other guy who's not quite as like he doesn't deliver as much, Adama Traore. And I was just thinking all through this game, I wish one of these teams signed Adama Traore, so the Oil Classico will actually have a brand ambassador. That'll be fun.
And
Yeah,
Erling Haaland, the way that like whenever he got into the game, he was really impacting the game, and he had a great shot, which was an equally good save by Nick Pope, and the finish also was is what you expect from that kind of instinctive poacher, so to say. Like he was just smelling the space. Not a great goal for Newcastle, but great goal for Haaland, and that's what he brings to the table.
yeah. But interestingly, this was the first game that both of these teams finally conceded a goal. So more credit to Newcastle there compared to City. But yeah, clean sheets finally breached for everyone. There's still hope for all non-City supporters that maybe there might still be some fight left in this league. Moving on, Fulham Brentford. I think I'm going to give the stage to a certain someone who's gambled big on a Fulham striker despite past history. Up 90th minute winner. I mean, this must have felt
Yep.
sweet.
Yeah. I honestly didn't expect it. I know Fulham went 2-0 up very quickly. I think they scored their first goal within the first minute. A very scrappy goal. And then Brentford came back strong. But, when you have a striker like Mitrovic around, there's always that, you just need one chance, right? You need to float it into the box, and, he's going to, a guy like that is always going to give you a chance. So, my fantasy team is doing well this weekend. I believe I'm up against you. So,
Unfortunately.
can't ask for more from Mitrovic. I think he's equaled the number of goals he scored the last time Fulham were in the Premier League. So, I think from now we only go upwards.
Yeah, so he scored, and it was just a dramatic moment, sliding on the grass in the 90th minute. It was great, and love watching these games at Craven Cottage. But he should have had 3, maybe 4 goals in that game, and this is not the first time we've said this about Mitrovic. He maybe scores the toughest chance that he had. He's getting himself into great positions, and you can always talk that up about how he'll always score goals if he gets himself into these positions. But In the EPL, somehow that conversion rate takes a hit when he comes up from the championship. He's now trending 9 goals under XG in his career in the EPL. Even the last time he actually scored in double digits, he was trending 4-5 goals below XG. I don't know, maybe quality of keeping, the pressure he puts on himself, but he has some demons, or these may be the obvious arguments, but of course, Talky Taka knows better. It's not any of this. It's purely down to the voodoo that is Ab's draft karma. I think Ab has taken care of Mitrovic's career.
And talking of strikers, Ivan Toney is having a great start to the season, right? I think he missed, or two of his goals got ruled out before he finally scored. So he's been another one in the news. And I don't know what to make of this match because United lost 4-0 to Brentford. Brentford go on and lose 3-2 to Fulham. I really don't know what to make of United.
I don't think we can keep that chain going for much longer now. I don't think we're honestly expecting Fulham to beat United.
United are relegation fodder. Is that what you're trying to say? RK starting
Think of this chain if United beat Liverpool. Sorry,
United beat Liverpool. Yeah, it's Sunday night. We should have a couple of pegs here and sit and dream about it, and because we'll probably cry. There are a lot of rumors linking Ivan Toney with some of the other bigger Premier League teams. I think he would be a good fit as a option of the bench for both Chelsea and United. So let's see what happens in the next 9 days before the transfer window closes.
Yeah, RK mentioned Toney, and I don't know if you guys saw that, but after both the disallowed goal and the actual goal he scored, he did the Mitrovic celebration. I don't know what that was about. There's some needle. I'm really loving this season so far. There's so much needle and banter happening between so many different teams. It's almost like somebody shooting a documentary. Let's see what Amazon announces later this year. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wonder who their club in focus this season is. I think it's announced around the middle of the season, right? That we're doing something with this club, and somehow suddenly everything starts to make sense about what's happened in the first half of the season. Okay, apart from these two games, we also had Arsenal continuing on their merry way, and they're the only team with a 100% record now. And just wanted to give that a bit of an air there. We've talked quite significantly about Arsenal. I mean, they're a team who all of us have enjoyed watching this season.
It's just one thing on Arsenal, and I've talked about them enough, so I'm not going to go for too long. It's Martinelli is looking like a real elite talent all of a sudden. He was a rotation player maybe a few months ago. He's looking really good. And the best thing about Arsenal for them, at least for Arsenal fans, is that all the good stuff that's happening, Saka is hardly part of it. He's not featuring heavily on any of the stuff that Arsenal is doing well. And that only bodes well for them because he was the standout player last season. If he gets firing on all cylinders, I think Arsenal are they have something to look forward to this season for sure.
Yeah, it seems like they finally have some sort of bench strength. Smith Rowe hasn't played yet. Fabio Vieira hasn't come into the side. Nicola Pepe is apparently being loaned back to France. So the regular failings that we've seen with Arsenal, they don't seem to be present this season. We never know. I mean, Arsenal always have, as Ab said, they always have the opportunity to implode any second. But let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
Because the Saka part is interesting because they seem to be lined up as a 4-4-2-3-1, but because of the way Zinchenko is attacking down the lane, he's carrying the ball. It looks like Xhaka is being more reserved on the other side. So more than a right forward, he's playing like somewhat of a right wing back, and probably that's why he's not at the end of chances in the box. So probably that's why. But yeah, Martinelli, Jesus, absolutely brilliant to watch. And for those interested in the fantasy leagues, look at the points Granit Xhaka has been raking up. So he has been providing the chances to a lot of the goals there. So that's a interesting choice.
Clean sheets also help.
So
right?
Sorry, RK.
Clean sheets also help midfielders with I think 1 or 2 points there. So probably that's also helped him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Swag.
Sorry, I missed one point that I wanted to make, and because of another reason for the formation is how they are not playing with a right back, because they have Ben White playing there, and probably he is not the most attacking person. That's why they have a lopsided team. So it'll be interesting when they have an option like Tomiyasu. He came on as a sub. So if he is available, then how do they change around their centre backs? Does one of Saliba or Ben White or Gabriel go back to the bench? And if that happens, how does it change around? It'll be quite interesting how Arteta manages that.
For me, again, the main thing I'll come back to Arsenal about is in the second half, they seem to be dropping the possession percentage a lot. The dominance of territory goes down a lot. I don't know why that is happening. This game, they were comfortably on top, so that is an excuse, for this game. But 3 games in succession, that is something to watch out for. I still think there is a soft underbelly there. We need to see when Arsenal play against tougher opposition. I think other than Crystal Palace, their other 2 games were comfortable, but they were playing against a highly disorganized, highly ordinary Bournemouth side, I thought, and they still came under a bit of weather in the second half, and that was not structural or anything to do with it, just a loss of concentration and shape. So I am definitely not completely convinced about Arsenal, but it's a great place for them to be in, from where they were a year back.
Yeah. Moving on to another London team, Crystal Palace. I think impressed all of us last season, and they've basically continued on in the same vein this season as well. They're doing well. They have good, talented players. They have some relatively senior statement in people like Zaha, and then they have the likes of Eze and Olise. Uh, I mean, there was a rumor that Callum Hudson-Odoi would potentially go on loan to Crystal Palace, but they basically refused it because there's no place for him to start, and wherever he goes, he would want to start. So that speaks to the strength of what Crystal Palace have built, considering where they were at the start of the previous season when Roy Hodgson had just left and so many players were out of contract. And I mean, that's it's been a good, interesting rebuild for the last year or so for Crystal Palace.
Just a shout out to Zaha there. I think last 19 Premier League games he scored 11 or 13 goals. So he's finally like he had a lean patch where he wasn't really getting on the end of things, not getting the stats right while still being an important player. But now he's again, I think, having a second wind kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and one thing I was just thinking about this while watching the Palace game. They're so good to watch. I'm so happy that we don't have those dire Hodgson, Sam kind of teams in the league this time. Palace was so good. Fulham were good to watch. Brentford are good to watch. Most of the games that you turn the TV on are like really entertaining. Not finding too many boring games this season at all.
Yeah, I mean, probably speaks to the strength of the league then. Anyway, that concludes part 1. In part 2, all of us take shelter as rants. Welcome back. In part 2, we're starting off with Leeds Chelsea. We discussed last week whether it would be beneficial for who would it be better for? Whether it would be better for Antonio Conte to miss the touchline, or whether it would be better for Thomas Tuchel. Tuchel must be wishing that he had basically taken the touchline ban for this game. Nothing good came out of it. We ended up with another centre back out of commission. Going by this, Ruben Loftus-Cheek is going to play at centre back and wing back next week. Similar failings to what's happened in the past. Build chances, don't take chances, get punished. You've been quiet for a long time. I mean, I can see that rage building in your face for a long time now. Go for it.
You mentioned that Tuchel should have probably taken the touchline ban. Right? I should have probably taken a TV ban and not watched this one, because it was just like horrendous. Right? As soon as I saw the match, I was like, man, I have so much to rant about on the pod, but at the same time, I didn't want to go on a random tangent. So I noted down 3 or 4 things that I thought I'll mention. First, I think Thomas Tuchel got it wrong completely, both from a shape and a team selection or a personal selection point of view. I know that Loftus-Cheek did well at wing back against Spurs, but in a game like this, with Kante missing, I think we needed Loftus-Cheek in midfield and to unlock James on that wing back position. So that seemed like a blunder. Chelsea has that struggled to create a lot of chances. James is significantly the biggest outlet for Chelsea in terms of pushing forward. So I think not putting him there and having him as a third centre back was just a trick missed today, especially with Aspilicueta being available on the bench. Right? Now that's one part of it. I briefly mentioned Kante, and to put Gallagher in a two-man midfield with Jorginho was a bad idea.
I mean,
Jorginho
we
does really
mentioned Kante's fragility in the past as well, but I mean, to go from an extent where Kante is playing and now Kovacic is also injured, so he's also not there. So Gallagher is virtually fourth choice there. So I mean, there is potentially some logic to what's happening, but yeah, at Chelsea you would expect better, right? I mean, to quote our fellow brethren from some other football clubs, this is Chelsea Football Club, so that should not be happening.
Yeah. I think that's and I don't want to be too harsh on Conor Gallagher. I think he did whatever he was told to do. The problem is that he's not a deep lying pivot, right? He's not a guy who's going to take the ball from one side, spread the pass long. He likes to run forward. He likes to receive the pass in the final third, right? So I think it seemed like an obvious error by Tuchel to do that. And don't get me started on Edouard Mendy, man. That guy, what a clown he is. I don't know what he was trying to do there. I was ranting on Twitter also earlier today. Between the times that Mendy does something like this and gives away goals, and Jorginho holds on to the ball and gives away goals, I think we drop like 10 points every year, right? And they don't do it in the same game also. They find a way to do it in alternate games just to, mess with us. So I think some decision making needs to improve there. It's just, all of this I'm saying without touching on some of the existing issues, which is the fact that, we do create chances, but nobody can put them away. We got a centre forward for 100 million, we sent him back. I mean, it's just, So I do expect now that we will spend a lot of money in the 10 days that remain in the transfer window. But I don't know if that's going to really help us. I know it depends on who we get, but I don't know if that's going to help us a lot. Yeah, it was just a miserable game to watch. I think we started okay, but it was just right. And to top it all off, a nice cherry on the cake was a nice welcome to the Premier League red card for Koulibaly now. So, whether Tuchel likes it or not, he has to play Aspilicueta next week.
The smile on our case.
One of the things I read was in the first 60 minutes itself, there was a 9-kilometer running difference between Leeds and Chelsea. So probably tomorrow morning, Tuchel is going to do some 11-kilometer run for each of the players, similar to what Ten Hag did.
Those kinds of like master strokes are only for the true elite managers. Okay, Tuchel, normal people like Tuchel are not capable of that. But I'm totally with up. I don't literally the only thing from an attacking sense that has looked good for Chelsea for the last, say, for a few, not just this season, even last season, Reece James would be right at the top of that list. And to shackle him is just unthinkable. When I saw the team, I thought, the apps all got it wrong, and that clearly, obviously, it's not going to be in those positions that they actually end up playing. But yeah, that was a real blunder. I can't imagine why they would do something like that. Didn't he score last week? I think he scored last week, right?
Yeah.
He scored last week, yes.
It doesn't make any sense to me. I think from a defensive organization, I always keep Tuchel on a pretty high playing field, but this was pretty poor.
And question on this right-sided position as well. If the whole point of kind of keeping Aspi longer, like one of his positions was to be the RCB, and he's done it last season also, while not maybe completely effectively. But then what's the point of Aspilicueta if he's not there for that particular position?
Yeah, I think I really don't know why he didn't start today's game. I think he should have. See, the only thing I can think of that was probably going through Tuchel's head was that the 11 that started today started last week against Spurs, with the exception of N'Golo Kante. And he probably expected that, don't want to change something that worked last time, right? But that ended up being a huge mistake given, I think Leeds were very, very sharp. I think they did their homework. They ran, like you said, they outran Chelsea quite significantly. And, they exploited our weaknesses, right? When Kante is not there, Jorginho has such few options in terms of what he can do. He's also a limited player. I think that is well known. But I think the Leeds exploited that. They cut off his passing angles. They outran us, and it was just it was kind of similar to Brentford versus Manchester United. Maybe not as extreme, but it was a case of the quote unquote smaller team being more well prepared than the larger team, and then doing that. I think that was a definite wake up call for Chelsea. I guess I'm just glad it happened before the window closed. Let's see if that impacts any signings.
Do you think what happened at the end of the game last week had an impact on the players or the mind of the coaches going into today's game, or was it just a failure on the day?
I would. You want to see something like that and hope that it fires up your players for the next game, but it doesn't work like that. See, my fear is that the entire narrative through the week has been, if VAR had spotted the hair pull on Cucurella and got the player sent off and Chelsea had 1-1, Chelsea would have 1-1, sort of took away from the fact that we conceded a 95th minute corner to draw a game which we should have won, right? So that fragility kind of got overlooked, I would say, because of the fact that the entire narrative was about the red card.
And another thing, we've talked about how the attackers have been interchanging Havertz, Sterling Mount more so than Havertz. I still feel like we have space for a proper centre forward there somewhere. For the last 2 or 3 seasons, leave Lukaku to a side, but we keep creating all these chances. We have these creative outlets. We have the likes of Chilwell and James and even Mount basically running around everywhere like Energizer bunnies and creating chances. But we basically lack. Ever since Giroud left, I think you mentioned this on the WhatsApp chat as well. Ever since Giroud left, we've missed someone who can basically put it in the back of the net. Is it worthwhile? Spending some money on that. Get anyone, get even someone who's like playing for a 7th, 8th ranked team in the Premier League. You don't need to go for complete elite players. Just get someone whose job it is to basically just be a striker, be a number 9.
Yeah. See, elite players at this stage of the window, when you haven't planned for the transfer, you're not going to get. Right? You're not going to get. Obviously, City moved early. They got Haaland. Liverpool moved early. They got Darwin. You're not going to be able to get an Nkunku, who also has just renewed. You're not going to be able to get these players right now. That said, that doesn't mean that we should, revert to going for a Callum Wilson also. It's also not a good idea to do something like that. So, Chelsea are looking at Aubameyang, various reports on how that transfer might be going up and down. But, it's someone that Tuchel knows, who's very fond of. I think they still talk to each other pretty frequently. So, we could land, and to be honest, I think we should look to not get more than one good season out of a player like that right now and plan for who we're getting next summer, right? So I think this is the planning that should happen. I know we don't have a proper director of football yet. Whether it will, who knows? But yes, I do agree with you that we do need someone there. I struggle to see where the goals are coming from in this lineup. I thought Broha, he'll at least play a bit, right? But the guy comes on for 2 substitute appearances and gets injured in training after that. So, where do you go from here, right? So,
Yeah,
It's
so
just bizarre right now.
talked about Oba, and I thought Tuchel at least thinks that he has a special relationship with him and he can bring something out of it. Chelsea are working on that. Barca are playing very hard to get as usual. So we don't know what will happen there. I think the other two problems that we already talked about was the ball progression and how Chelsea defended. I thought pretty loose. Of course, they were chasing a game, but with four at the back, there were a lot of gaps to exploit. I think Fofana not playing for Leicester, that's again an indication that something might be moving on that front sooner than later. So Fofana and Frankie De Jong for me also is something to watch out for Chelsea. I think because these are the three problems which Tuchel will be looking to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could get three players, it would be a centre forward, ball progressing midfielder, and a forward, and a defender. If I could get only two, I would go for the forward and the defender, which looks like the case right now. I don't think a De Jong would happen.
Yeah, I don't think Barcelona need to sell De Jong anyway now. They've activated lever number 37 or 65. I don't even know which lever has been pulled now, but they don't need to let him go now. So now suddenly
Yeah,
everything is hunky dory there.
actually,
Moving on from the miserable existence of a Chelsea fan, as Duncan Alexander says, he has this tweet which he keeps retweeting every 3 or 4 weeks that there is always a crisis club. The trick in football is to not be that club this week. So last week it was Manchester United. This week it's Chelsea. Let's see who it is next week. A potential option for that name could be West Ham. They're the only team who haven't scored a goal yet, and that's despite the fact that they've spent so much on Skamaka. They played Brighton, a team notorious for not scoring goals and underperforming their XG historically, but they continue to go from strength to strength. So Brighton and West Ham looking in absolutely different trajectories at the moment, and this is probably again testament to what Graham Potter can do.
Yeah, it's surprising how quickly things can change in football, right? 3 weeks, and David Moyes, who had a great season, very, very, synchronized team last season with West Ham, and suddenly it's three defeats, two games against Man City and Brighton, not the easiest of games, but also one in between with Nottingham Forest, which they would have been favorites for, and now, as you said, they're having real problems in attack. They are not integrated Maxwell Cornet and Skamaka into the team. He's just what Moyes is saying that he's just bedding them in. He started them in the Europa League and they played, and they played pretty well. I think Maxwell assisted Skamaka, if I'm not mistaken. So probably it's a matter of time for them, but definitely this is not a state where you want to be in. 3 games in, but as Arsenal and Arteta showed last season, not it's not alarm bells right now.
I mean, good for them that they're playing Aston Villa next weekend, so they potentially have an opportunity to get back on the right track. But yeah, coming back to Brighton, I think cheers to Graham Potter. What he's been doing is pretty good, and Welbeck is doing better than expected as a centre forward. They also have been in talks to sell Neil Maupay. So the confidence level is so high that rather than signing more strikers, they're willing to let go of strikers. They did bring in a couple of guys who they've had at their affiliated clubs earlier. So there's someone called Undav who's come in, and there's another guy whose name I'm forgetting, but he was at the Belgian affiliate club, the club called ULG, who was the surprise package in the Belgian league last season, and him as well they've brought over. So they have a couple of unknown quantities lurking in the background to take up the striker position, and let's see how that goes. Moving on, Spurs had a tough game against Wolves. They came away with the points, but they had to fight for those points, not literally, unlike last week. And they basically played Jorge Mendes's Portuguese contingent plus four more players. I mean, this is the maximum Portuguese players that have ever played in one side in a Premier League match. So, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty attritional, not the most exciting game, but there was a tactical, matchup which was pretty interesting for me. In the first half, Wolves, in selling Connor Cody, one of their main motives was that they wanted to play four at the back. But quite surprisingly, what happened during the game in the first half was that Pedro Neto was playing as a right wing back, and they were able to cancel out Spurs' shape, and they actually dominated that first half. We have, I think, on the group we have talked about how their midfield three is, I mean, as close to world class as you know as some of the midfields get in the Premier League. So that and those guys were really controlling the ball, and they were cancelling out Spurs' shape, and they were really suffering from a lack of creativity in the final third, which is again a well documented problem for Wolves. And I thought that Bruno Lag made a mistake in the second half by trying to change things when he was on top, kind of, and that like suddenly Spurs got on top and they started getting more space on the flanks. And Spurs actually had a better second half than Wolves. So it was a game of two halves, but there was a tactical kind of matchup underneath that.
3 points in 30. That doesn't read well at all for Wolves. We don't really talk about them as teams that are in trouble and things like that. But 3 points in 30, and let's remember that their striker who took them to the highs that they reached is never been the same ever since he came back from the injury. I think this is one to keep an eye on. Obviously, they have way too many quality players to actually look at this seriously at this point of time. But it's one to going back to last season's form. There is definitely a lot to be worried about. 10 games and 3 points. I mean, any club manager would be under pressure after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wolves look, surprisingly stale when they reach the final third. Before that, they are okay, but once they reach the final third, they go flat, pass sideways to sideways. Nothing really comes out of it, and of course, they don't have that focal point. With Jimenez nowhere near his peak, they haven't really properly replaced him. It's definitely a concern for Wolves because this is a pattern which is continuing from last season for them. It's not something new, which might be a blip. This is real.
Yeah, and
Wolves are looking to solve their final third problem by signing Michy Batshuayi on loan, is what I heard.
yes.
That'll be.
Is he still at Chelsea? What the hell? What are you guys hoarding? Why are you hoarding so many players? I read that Billy Gilmore is also still at Chelsea. I mean, these are all.
I mean, come on,
players who are-
it's not as if we are saying Danny Drinkwater is still at Chelsea. Billy Gilmore being at Chelsea is not that surprising a
Yeah.
thing.
Gilmore is still only 21 or 22, so he's okay.
So let's know.
Gilmore made his debut when he was 17, but
No, I mean like okay. Let's do a pop quiz on the left backs. Do you have that Italian left back still on the books?
if you're referring to Emerson, yes, of course, he's still there.
He's expected
So
to
is Alonso, by the way.
yeah, he's expected to make
So
a
is
move
Alonso.
to West Ham, and Alonso, as Ab just mentioned, he's potentially a target for Barcelona, but now they have to sell to buy. So let's see if
What
something
about
comes out of that.
Kennedy? Talking of left backs.
He'll always be there. He basically made the trip to the US camp as well, and people were surprised that people like Conte and Loftus-Cheek didn't go while Kennedy went, even though it turned out to be something related to their vaccination status. Also, who's there? Ross Barkley.
Man,
Oh,
I
yes.
don't even know. We can play this Chelsea still at the club bingo. Okay, please tell me Victor Moses has left. I hope Victor Moses has left after
Moses
the
went to
25
Russia.
years that he spent at Chelsea.
No, Victor Moses went to
Victor
Russia.
Moses now plays in Turkey, I think.
Yeah, he went to Russia, and then since they canceled the contracts there, so he moved somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, at least we've let go of Drinkwater, and Bakayoko is gone on loan. But yeah.
Yeah. Circling all the way back to Wolves, I think the new signing, Matthews Nunes, looked pretty good. I didn't think he would start so soon after joining, but he started and they look good. I think he got caught up in that the entire first half where I think all of Wolves players were better than all of the Tottenham players. But yeah, I think that also bodes well. But like RK said, unless they can solve that final third problem, no amount of midfielders is going to help them. So.
Yeah, this one really hit
Talking
me. I
of
think as a Liverpool fan, Nunez was one that we were tracking quite closely. He was linked quite heavily with us earlier in the summer, and the general Liverpool reporters were saying he was off the market, and that's the only reason we've not taken it forward. And then to see 50 million euro kind of signing happening to Wolves, that really raised my eyebrow. And something seems off over there. Like either the clubs that were after him weren't really after him, and it was just being Jorge Mendes being himself. But yeah, something smells a bit off in this. Like, why did that fall below the cracks for so many teams?
Yeah, talking of Spurs now, I think couple of things is that one, the kind of 3-4-3 shape that they are playing. What we have seen over the last couple of games is that teams are finding a way to outnumber them in midfield, and it's not something that's very important for Spurs to dominate the ball or the territory in itself, but that is something where some element of control is going out of Spurs' hands, and that is something they will need to probably readjust in some way. They also don't really have the most progressive midfield, so Bentancur and Højbjerg, it's a bit more functional than probably what a top end of the table team would want. I mean, I'm going by Conte's ambitions here. Although they have bought well, we still haven't seen Bissouma, but again, he's also not the most progressive midfield passers. So midfield is an area where in terms of numbers and progressive quality, there are some problems coming out. Also, the same thing in defense as well. When Christian Romero is not there, there are some errors. Although they did manage to keep a clean sheet, but Davinson Sanchez, Davies, and Eric Dyer, probably that's not the final form of the back three which Conte has in mind. And one more thing was which again has come out is when teams are not really employing the high press and not really giving a chance to Spurs to counter down the flanks, they are it is possible to kind of hold them in check. They managed to kind of overcome that in the second half, and they will always have that quality on the counter. But while I'm still pretty convinced about Spurs, given that it's an early season, but it's a good news that there are like plenty of flaws out there which Conte has to work on, and probably which gives other teams hopes of being in touch, and especially from a top four perspective.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. We have some input from our hidden gem, our transfer specialist Pratikshio, who's more reliable than Romano Fabrizio and has more up-to-date information from him. Let's listen in.
With the summer transfer window in its last leg, it has been an eventful weekend for Anthony and Manchester United. United's last bid of 80 million on Wednesday was rejected by Ajax, and in a bid to force the transfer, Anthony did not train on Friday and Saturday and wasn't in the matchday squad for Ajax against Sparta Rotterdam. Ajax have maintained throughout the summer that Anthony is not for sale, but seems like their stance has softened, with United readying a new bid which might be closer to Ajax's evaluation of 100 million euros. Laurie and Jason Burt have said that Anthony is the number one priority for Manchester United, and Gapco is the cheaper alternative. Gapco would cost somewhere around £38.3 million, but it seems like Ten Hag has his eyes set on Anthony. Simon Malak and Marcel van der Kraan of the Telegraph have said that Glazers have made more money available to strengthen the squad, and according to them, United are in for both Anthony and Gapco. Let's see how this pans out. Moving to London and Chelsea. Chelsea's long pursuit of Fofana might be entering its climax. Fofana wasn't in the matchday squad for Leicester against Southampton, which they lost 2-1. Chelsea have seen two bids of £50 million and £60 million for Fofana rejected, and will have to pay a world record fee of £80 million to sign him. John Percy said that Chelsea are set to make a third offer this week, and I expect Chelsea to sign him. An exciting end to the summer transfer window is on the cards. Stay tuned for the
Thanks,
ride.
Pratik. So looks like Anthony is finally going to make his way to Old Trafford, and suddenly there's lots more money available to Eric Ten Hag once the first two game weeks haven't gone the way the Manchester United hierarchy expected to. Interesting times. And with regards to Fofana, I'm sure Chelsea fans would enjoy having him on the squad. I'm just alarmed by the fact that the backup option seems to be Harry Maguire for some reason. Let's see how that pans out. That ends part two. In part three, we'll discuss the matches that are going to be played the next weekend and also take a look at Casemiro and what his arrival means for Manchester United. Welcome back. In part three, we're discussing the upcoming fixtures. We're also going to take a look at how Casemiro is expected to fit in at Manchester United. And I have a question for the panel, which we'll come to later. So, Radhaji, we had a discussion about how it's going to be a bloodbath between Lisandro Martinez when he comes up against Darwin Núñez. I guess not going to happen this time round. I think the last time a new rebel, red-wearing new rebel had this much trouble with Mr. Andersen was in the Matrix. What's what's happening now? I've heard. I mean, we've heard quite a lot of feedback about he's a Uruguayan striker, so he's bound to be hot-headed and stuff like that, and gamesmanship by Anderson. Both sides of the story. It's an important miss, I would say, for Liverpool for tonight's game, considering Firmino wasn't expected to be starting. Jota is also not completely there, and now Nunes is also not there. So, where do you see this going?
It's absolutely the most terrible time that this could happen. Yeah, there's just something about this scrappy, talented Uruguayan guy doing something crazy. It just sends a chill down your neck. It's a little uncomfortable. We've been here before, but yeah. That said, I'm sure. I mean, he's a young guy. He'll learn from it. And from what I've heard and read, he doesn't have this in his past, in his history at least. He's had a pretty impeccable record in his past clubs, so I'm not worried about it too much. He will learn. I'm sure about that. On the pitch, I think it's going to hurt us a lot because after just 2 games, he raked up so many quality chances. He didn't play 2 whole games. He played 1.5 games. If you actually look at it, he played only some 95 minutes. So it's something that we are going to miss. He had the highest XG after 2 game weeks after playing just 97 minutes. And I think Firmino doesn't really rake up the XGs. So it's going to be something that will be difficult for us to cope for 3 games. But yeah, for the long term, I'm not too concerned. But this whole injury thing,
United guys would be pretty happy, I guess. I mean, RK is probably finally looking forward to a United game this season.
Yeah, that's the thing I didn't, get about what Radha said. The most inopportune time to have this. I mean, what can be more opportune to have your striker missing than facing United next game?
yeah, I mean, if you had him, given the 2 games that we've just seen, I think we need a win. It's not. We're both in not a very good situation, I'd say. So that way, I would say it's. I'm a little scared about what's happening because there's some heebie-jeebies definitely in the Liverpool side of things. Everybody seems to have a PTSD from 2 years ago with the availability situation. Klopp played Nat Phillips last week, and we were all. I thought I had misread the tweet when Nat Phillips was starting and Joe Gomez was on the bench. I think everybody's just losing their shit a little, getting a little too careful, worried about they might lose everybody in the core team. So yeah, I'm actually a bit worried about the game, RK. I know you're trying to take some pressure off there, but yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the game.
This is the ideal game for Firmino to hit his form. You don't have, like, what else do you need to look forward to? A defense of McTominay and Fred being shielded by Maguire and Bello and Luke Shaw. Like, I should have triple captain Firmino in my fantasy team.
Just a word on Lisandro, though. I mean, there's this whole talk of him not being able to cope in the air, and I had that same impression of him from the last game, but it looks like he actually won a lot of duels in open play while being responsible for the third goal. So hopefully there's some background behind Lisandro being good.
The data, look at the data, or the data says he played well. That's what the manager said. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, DSK, the manager said a lot of interesting things. Looking forward to that as well.
When's that out?
Yeah,
is that out
interview.
today or is that out tomorrow?
It's tomorrow. Tomorrow.
So that interview is going to be, I think, I mean, if the promo is anything to go by, that should be fun. Just one thing before we move on, we had a chat on episode 1 or 2. It was about Joachim Andersen. What a great player, what a great centre back, amazing passer. Yeah, after that overaction that he did with Darwin, I mean, totally deserved red card, but with that overaction, now he's dead to me. He's a budget Daniel Agger. It's over between us.
Yeah, so in the last 2 weeks, we've basically heard that Mitrovic deserved the man of the match, but is a diver, and Anderson is a budget Daniel Agger, but he deserves whatever he gets. Cool, good to know that the Liverpool fans are taking it well. Anyway, I mean, if Liverpool wins the game tomorrow, you'll be just a point behind Chelsea, or rather a point above us. Actually, I was trying to remove the bad memories of today's game from my mind. Looking forward to the games that are going to happen over the coming weekend. There don't seem to be many standout fixtures, but considering what's gone on today, Chelsea Leicester seems to have become significantly more important, also known as the Fofana Derby. Wonder who he ends up playing for. I mean, considering what's gone on today, and plus with Koulibaly's red card, it might just be that we pay Leicester what they want so that he plays in a different shade of blue next weekend. I know you've talked a lot about what went on in today's game. Any hopes for next weekend? I mean, you're quite literally face palming, so I'm I'm not holding out much hope here.
Yeah, I'm not feeling high on confidence right now. I mean, I think Leicester at home we should still win, but I hope that Tuchel learns some of the lessons of today's game in terms of personnel and formation.
Aston Villa West Ham also seems pretty interesting because of the struggle that both the managers have started off the season with. That should be a storyline with some narratives there.
Yeah, as we discussed earlier, West Ham, the only team who hasn't scored a goal yet. So, and that's after they've spent so much money on Skamaka and touting him as this next big striker. So that'll be an interesting thing to look forward to. Another game that I'm going to be looking forward to is Forest versus Tottenham. Forest is, of course, everyone's team to watch this season because we never know what's going on. But also maybe a chance for Spurs to start Jed Spence. He's not started a game yet. It might be just a good opportunity to give him a run out against his previous team. So that might be an interesting thing to look forward to. Brighton, as we discussed earlier, have been impressive, and they're going to be facing Leeds. Anyone has any thoughts on that?
Leeds are clearly the hot team of the league at the moment, so that should be a fun game. Brighton, honestly speaking, all jokes aside, have been outstanding. So yeah, that should be a good game. I think they're far too good for Leeds.
But why is Leeds a hot team? I thought Crystal Palace was a hot team, and I was looking forward for Crystal Palace Man City, like Eze and Zaha pulling the Man City defense apart. So that is my game for the next week. Going back to the previous points back, do you see Spence starting? Because somewhere I read that he was not the manager's choice. Although definitely it looks like they need a different right back because they have no creativity down the center. And Emerson was definitely
Yeah, it was
lacking in the
interesting
last game.
when Spence was signed as well. Conte mentioned that he was a club choice. I mean, curious choice of words to say when you're unveiling a guy who you've spent, I don't even remember, 20, 25, 30 million on. So it doesn't seem like he features prominently in his plans. But of course, Conte needs as many wing backs as possible. So might we?
Yeah, true. And there is Doherty, who I think Doherty played 7 or 8 games only under Conte last season, and he was absolutely flying before he got injured. So I see a change in the right wing back position, but yeah, let's see
But
who comes
having
in.
said that and discussed all the next weekend's fixtures, I'm sure we are going to spend more than enough amount of time on the Monday night fixture, thrashing of United by Liverpool.
You're not giving up. You're continuing to hold the jinx curse above Liverpool's head. Cool. Let's see what happens. Moving on. We talked about some of the games next week. Do we see any chance that Casemiro might be playing in that game for United in the coming weekend match, which is against Southampton? Do you think this would be completed by then?
Yeah, there are no complications in the transfer, and United would be desperate for a point by then. 3 game weeks and probably drawing a blank in all three. So expect Casemiro to feature in. Although it'll be quite interesting to see what formation the manager is going to bring in. Is he going to be the deepest, or is he going to play alongside Fred? There's analysis in the Athletic how there is a very functional Fred Casemiro combination for Brazil, where the gap between them is so huge that you expect some 6 of Hasenhutl's players to run past. And then what do you do with Bruno ahead of them, who all he does, according to Wayne Rooney, all he does is flap his hands and scold his own teammates.
I mean, if you've played FIFA, I mean, when you have your ultimate team in there, you basically have those links between players. If they actually play in the real world in the same club or for the same country. I think the way the United's transfer window is going, there's going to be 2 sets. There's going to be a Varane linked to Casemiro, linked to Fred, and Casemiro also linked to Ronaldo up front. And then there's going to be the Ajax boys. So 2 sets of green links, and I don't know if the key thing would be, is there a connection between these 2 sets of links or not, considering what's going on?
And is there, and considering the manager wants to play out from the back, there is a keeper who can't link anything. So it will also be quite weird on how all of that also
Yeah.
plays
Yeah,
out.
so I think these United boys are going all in with the reverse psychology. So let me give it a go. Casemiro, what a signing! I think one of the greatest signings we'll ever see in the Premier League. All the problems we've been talking about, this problem for 3-4 years now.
6 years. Don't forget
6
what
years.
Ashwin said last week. 6 years we've been
Right.
crying out for a central defensive midfielder, and now he's here.
And honestly speaking, like, jokes aside, the true elite central defensive midfielder, I think, on the market. I didn't know he was on the market, but real coup signing. Yeah, of course, there are risks. He's a little older than what they would have liked to get, but a real top class player. He'll definitely improve them. And yeah, all those links. I like the way you're thinking, Swag. Ronaldo and Varane and all those links. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think Varane also posted something on social media saying that a lot of battles to fight, and the rumor mill says Ronaldo has agreed to stay because he has heard about the Casemiro story. Yeah, definitely looking forward to a defensive midfielder, because previously we had somebody who could not defend or pass or do anything. And if you have seen the 2 matches, what's been happening is there are a lot of balls played into Martinez. We don't win the first ball, and there is nobody to contest for the second ball. So that is definitely what, as United fan, I hope Casemiro will solve. The other part is truly elite, but he's hit 30, and United's success rate with players over that age have been hit and miss. Zlatan was a success, Cavani was a success, but then Alexis was a bit of a failure. So was Schweinsteiger and Falcao. So let's see how this one plays out. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so going back to our previous discussions in our preview and talking about how the number 6 should look like at United, I think what we were talking about was, for a lot of us, Frankie de Jong himself wasn't the ideal number 6, especially when you put it in a PL environment. We were all, even in Eric Ten Hag's previous teams, he always had a very strong destroyer alongside either Frankie de Jong or Gravenberch. So I think going by that, I was a bit surprised that Eric Ten Hag was trying to have a solely ball playing number six coming into the Premier League with United, going against the grain, so to speak. Looking at that, I think Casemiro is like fits the profile of player which will suit Ten Hag as well as this league perfectly. Uh, yeah, the other concerns I think DSK and Radha they have already laid out, but
I,
it's a good signing. The only concern here is that we don't really have a ball progressor next to him. That is something it's very clear that he needs. So that is going to be the next big gap when Casemiro starts playing. That he will solve one set of problems, but the rest of it will still look I think pretty bad as especially if Erickson is not playing and Erickson in the pivot brings his own set of problems. So however, it was not planned. Casemiro transfer, and that's another aspect of it. Not a planned transfer at all. Very reactive to other situations going on. And I don't think I can complete anything about Casemiro without referring to Adrian Rabiot. Thank God that guy didn't sign for us, and thanks to Veronique Auntie for whatever she did. So that's a big relief.
I mean, I was going to make a point about something else, but Veronique Auntie has completely thrown me. Anyway, I think the only thing about the Casemiro transfer that I am slightly concerned about, I mean, not concerned in the sense that I'm not a United fan, but from what I've been hearing, his wages are going to be significant as well. So I don't know where he sits in the larger scheme of things, but that's again potentially a slight concern for me. But
It, it's been quoted that his salary is going to be double of what he gets at Real, but there are people who have mentioned that that won't be the case. But 50 plus 10 million quoted for somebody who's 30 and a 5-year contract is, yeah, it's pretty much on the higher side. But I think United need that. United need a few winners to come in from inside and kick some sense into some of the younger players. If you've seen some of the big matches in the last 2 years, United team has just wilted. So this is definitely required, and not just Casemiro, maybe a couple of other players also.
I
Yeah, I
don't
think
think the wages.
by all accounts, he's shown himself to be a quite a top professional. So hopefully that carries on at United. The only thing we have seen, and we referred to it before, is when some of these guys come in after winning so much. Probably that happened with Wijnaldum at PSG. Also, I don't know. Probably there is some release or something happening which like probably they are not able to replicate their same hunger. That's something to watch out.
retirement
I'm
home sort of thing, basically. But he's 30. He's not. I mean, he's not 34. He's not 35. He's like, you could consider him still to be in the prime of his career.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned, Swag, about the wage. I think what I've read is around 350, 360. And that's like, honestly speaking, I
Peanuts for
think at
United.
United, yeah, at United, it's not a game-changing wage, right? Like they have players on a similar kind of wage already. I think De Gea is at 390, Sancho somewhere in the 300 range. So I think I'm not too concerned. And if anybody can garner a salary like that, it would be somebody like Casemiro, right? So I'm not too worried. I on the pitch, I'm also waiting to see how things pan out after some of the poor examples that DSK and RK quoted in the past. But I'm not too worried about that either. Last season is a barometer. He was outstanding, I think, whenever I saw him play last season. So I'm not too worried about that either.
Okay, so he looks to be an interesting signing and someone who we'll be looking at once he starts to play. To finish off with, I have a question for you guys. 30 seconds each. Give me the name of a player and why. Someone who's not from your team, but who you enjoy watching quite a lot, and it can be any position, obviously. So I'll take the low hanging fruit and say Kevin De Bruyne. Apart from the fact that there's that emotional stress that we have every time we see him playing against Chelsea. He's a magician. He knows exactly where each ball needs to go, what needs to happen. Even today in the game, the goal that he assisted, he was absolutely clear what he needed to do. He's basically, I think, if he was playing for a different slightly more matured national team, he would have probably had some international trophies as well. He's despite the fact that Belgium are so talented, they don't have the metal to merge with what he has. So that's my pick.
Yeah, so for me, I think the name that keeps coming to my mind is Son Heung-min. He's somebody I always, whenever I see him play, I'm just super excited, and I wish we had him in our team as well. He does everything. He does the hard work. He's incredible at beating the line. Yeah, he's definitely a player I've always admired. But though I have to say, and listeners of the pod will agree with me, Gabriel Jesus is coming close to getting in that conversation for me as well.
DSK?
Yeah, you guys took the easy ones. I'll go a bit left field, and considering United problems, I would take it as a combination. I like the Wolves midfield combination of Coutinho, Ruben Neves, how they play really well. So, and me and RK keep chatting every once in a while of why United do not go after Ruben Neves. So, and even this week's game, he was brilliant. They have their limitations, but very interesting to watch how they dictate play and help the team punch above the levels.
Okay. You can't pick a Chelsea player?
Yeah. My answer is being heavily driven by today's terrible result. So I'm going to say two guys that I would, I know the question was phrased just like to watch, but I want to say I would like to have at Chelsea would be Haaland, because we need somebody to put the ball in the back of the net. And this one I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to say Christian Erickson from 5 years ago. I used to be a huge admirer of his when he was at Spurs. And, I think a player like that to find the forward pass is exactly what we need.
And yeah, I'll also go for two players, like one, going for what we need. So one is Ruben Neves. Again, some mirror on this weekend's matches. Great passer of the football. And the second one is Mo Salah, like electrifying player.
This is turned from looking at dream players to turn into a shopping list for our
Scouting.
clubs and
Scouting list.
who we want by end of next week. Okay, that concludes the pod.
Just one,
yeah.
just one quick one, Swag, before we end. I know you said you have to look at other teams' players. If only Chelsea had an opportunity to sign somebody like Kevin De Bruyne, that would have been great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It might have been a nice team with Kevin De Bruyne, the early Romelu Lukaku,
Or
Mo
Mo Salah
Salah. Yeah, Juan Mata, as everyone knows. I mean, I love Mata. I mean, I just think he's a great person. Footballing ability left aside, I think he's just a great guy with his 1% goal thing for charity. I mean, just love him. Okay. Anyway, that concludes today's pod. While we continue to build our wish list for our clubs and keep thinking of where we can get those precious points, we look forward to next weekend's games. And by the time we've reconvened, Arsenal would have continued their march towards the next Premier League champions title. Chelsea would have definitely lost to Leicester with 3-headed goals by Fofana. And Manchester United and Liverpool would have had a 6-6 draw at Old Trafford. So looking forward to that next week. Have a good night. Bye.